Well, I'm going to start this off today by saying you'll notice that we are in different clothes. The time is different and the game is not laid out before us.
Nope.
What happened was we played Operation Icarus from Tiny Battle Publishing like a week and a half ago. We played the game, we shot a video, and the sound didn't work right. There were some technical difficulties. Actually, the video of the game pieces itself, right, the close-up of the map worked well.
Yeah, so we'll cut to that here in a bit.
So just bear with us. We're just trying to get this one so that we can get the word out on it quickly and let you know what the game's about. So the game is from Tiny Battle Publishing. It's a polybag game it uses one map that has a couple different elements on that map. There's like a strategic worldview of the North Sea, Iceland, Northern England or Britain, and Norway on the east. And you're trying to get your ships across the channel to then invade Iceland. There's a couple different points you want to invade that island on, either the north or the kind of the southwest. And
obviously this is a hypothetical war game because Germany never landed troops in Iceland.
Right.
The UK did, so to speak, but that was mostly to prevent the Germans from taking it and starting raiding the North Atlantic even worse than they were. That kind
with their U-boats and
that
kind of thing.
So it's a kind of a what if Germany and England or Britain they invaded Iceland at the same time, both landed troops there, and kind of an ensuing combat and what that might look like.
Right. So the game is based. It's a hex encounter war game. It is. It's not necessarily I go, you go, but what happens is you move all of your units and/or you fight with all of your units.
Yeah.
So you can't move 5 or 6 hexes and then do an assault. You can one time a game. Mm-hmm. I had as the Germans, I had a blitz token, and I think you had something similar.
I think it's called the same thing.
Right. So it's a very interesting game. It's a strategic game, I would say, more so than a combat game. I landed on the north side of the island. I used the transit boxes to try to get from the north side of the island to the south side. That transit box acted almost as a speed bump.
A very large speed
bump that prevented me from literally blitzing down and taking over the entire island.
Yeah, but it's what I liked is that that's a way to abstract the size of the entire country
without showing a huge map.
Yeah, so it keeps it small, but it would just have been nothing. So
a bunch of volcanoes in the middle, probably.
Yeah, like you're just all traveling on a road.
Right, that would have been boring.
Yeah, doing that for 3 turns, we get it.
So that was a great mechanic. I think when we saw it, we initially were like, this is going to be interesting. But once we played it out and saw the purpose of it, the mechanical purpose of it, and the strategic importance of it, that helped us to see, that was a neat little mechanic. And then, like I said, you either move your units or you attack with your units. You don't get to do both in any single impulse.
And you make that choice
before
you do anything.
So you have to serve. I found myself surveying the field, and obviously it was much easier when I knew I had to move because I wasn't in contact. But there were some elements where I was like, well, if I attack with this one stack, these other 3 stacks over here who are not in contact yet are not going to be able to get in contact, right? Did you feel that struggle?
And it's really cool. I don't know if there's probably other games that do a similar thing to that, but I don't know if I've played those. But it was very unique because there is a lot of movement that you need to do, and then you're almost like on top of each other on these 2 fairly small tactical maps, and then you're, like you said, you come up with, I have to maximize all of my moves so that I can do all my attacks next time.
Right.
Or you end up, it's really inefficient, and you're like doing, I do 1 attack.
And then you move 5 guys while nothing happens. So.
Yeah, or you move 5 guys
and then do
these
6
guys
attacks.
are just like, they're gonna die.
Yeah,
It's like, I can't do anything with them.
The only other game that I think we've played that had an element like that was the Battle of Stalingrad from Turning Point Simulations. And it wasn't quite the same, but remember it had the Trans-Siberian boxes where you had to put guys in and keep moving them. Yeah. And then they would pop up like in the Rostov Black Sea area. So that was kind of a similar mechanic, but this was very different. That mechanic was different.
Yeah, you're just like, do I move or do I fight?
Right.
And it's weighing up which half of my forces do I want to do that with, because the other half probably going to do anything. It was fascinating. And the game itself, yeah, you're trying to kill each other and destroy each other's forces, but really
it's about control
it's
of
about
area.
controlling ports and cities, airfields, really important hexes. So it feels a lot more like it's a strategic race. Like, get my forces landed and book it, spread it over the island and create defensible positions, or like hang on. Because I kind of got on there and piddled around with a small a company of commandos, which are very weak.
Yeah, they were like 1-6 units, I think.
Yeah, and then my infantry would come in a few turns later, which you got to get them through the ocean, and they got to land and then get on.
And then move,
Whereas the Germans landed with a fairly substantial force early and started booking it across. So I'm trying to like hang on desperately. But that's why I think that move or fight mechanic works, because the moving is so important. A lot of the time you're like, no, I do want to move.
Yeah.
I want to just like kind of run away, and you put yourselves in what would be tactical, precarious positions, but it's like, I gotta do it for the VPs. It works. It's a very neat way that happens.
The combat mechanic was fairly standard.
Very simple.
You got a DRM for the terrain. You got a DRM whether you had, trying to remember if you had moved or not.
Tanks in open.
Right, tanks in open, not whether you'd moved or not, because you can't attack and move at the same time. There also were some aircraft. You had a couple of Hurricanes. I think I had an ME-109. Also some recon planes that were a different element, trying to spot naval units. My U-boats were kind of ineffectual, and I think your submarine was ineffectual as well.
Yeah, you just got to put those out, and those may or may not affect the strategic war.
And you got victory points if you sank a transport, I think. And
you kill everything on board, and basically instantly.
ends
you kill
ends an assault.
In the ocean.
But the game boiled down to it's about control of certain hexes, and I think our game ended with a score of 5-4.
Yeah,
I think the Germans
very close
won,
which was nice.
Right. So I felt like it was an interesting game, very different. Allowed us, I think, to do a lot more thinking, and I think I've started to like games that have those meaningful and very tough tactical and strategic decisions that really force you to think about what you're trying to do. Too often, war games, you're lined up in a mile-long front, and it's like, my only choice is what? Attack.
And there's choices within those kind of games. There's nothing wrong with those.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
But it's fun to have something different where it's like,
I got to move.
Little pieces. Because the board wasn't very open, so to speak. Because you had to go on roads. Because if you're trying to travel through the mountains,
you would never get there.
No, go anywhere. But it was, there was enough roads where you couldn't cover them all. You couldn't get everywhere, so wherever you're going, that's where the enemy's not going, and you'd be kind of dodging around. It was really neat. So I think what we should do, we'll cut in and look at the board, how it works, so you can see all of this, and then we'll come back, kind of wrap up with some final thoughts. So here's kind of a look at the map. I've got some bits and pieces here. This is kind of how our game ended, and it ended in a German victory. Grant won this one 5-4. And as you can see, the map's divided into 3 main sections. Here you've got a strategic look at the North Atlantic, so you've got Great Britain and Ireland, Norway, Iceland, and then you have some sea boxes. And it's not overly complex, it just helps divide up kind of strategic naval movement and how you get your troops in bits and pieces onto the island. And then you've got 2 different sections of tactical map, which are kind of your traditional hex encounter here. So this is the southwest corner with Reykjavik. That's the only word I could pronounce in this game, so I'm not going to attempt the other ones. And you got the northern part up here. And as you can see, these are 2 completely different kind of separate sections. And what we were talking about with those, the kind of the transport boxes, you have these 2 major thoroughfares that abstract the entire geography of kind of the middle part of Iceland. And what happens is you would move a unit on here. So I've got a truck with kind of a infantry battalion in it, and you just put them on this box from this road. And then on the next turn, they move up.
and then on the next turn, they move up. And that's literally all it is. And so then 3 turns later, they have to exit off here. And there's some really neat rules about, if the Germans, for example, had stuck a bunch of panzers here, you can be forced to come out in really bad terrain that's very unfavorable, or you can't even do it because that's blocked off to trucks. So you have to try and attack these units to even get through these roads to then get onto the map again. And there's some really neat rules, and if you can block people and stop people from coming through those routes, there's a lot of victory points to be won. So there's some neat mechanics, and the game at times reminded me of almost like trying to capture the flag almost, whereas you're trying to get into their side of the base, and just get in there, and once you're in there, it's hard for them to get you out, or it's a race the other way. It was just a really interesting back and forth through those roads. The units themselves are very typical with what you'd expect. So you've got here, these are British units, so you've got these commando units, which is what they start off with, a bunch of those. Got some artillery and some infantry. It's very typical of what the British have. And the only difference really is the Germans have some of these motorized. They have these panzer units here. And the panzer units are light tanks. It was a very early war. So they only got like 2 attack value as opposed to the infantry 6. But they have these huge movement factors. And so they can just race across the whole island. Once they kind of once they get through these routes, they got almost entire freedom. So then that brings up, the strategy of, do I blow bridges to cut them off, so to force them to slow down through rough terrain, but then that's going to cut myself off. That's just some really neat mechanics that kind of happen along with those. Combat's very simple in the sense that it's just odds-based. So these guys have, let's see, what do we have? So I've got a 6 German value, and he's going to attack this stack of 1, 2 British commandos. So you've got 3 to 1 odds. You roll a dice. I got a 1. And you just look on the CRT, which is, again, it's very simple. So we got 3 to 1 odds. You add a DRM. I'll roll a 1. That's fantastic. So you actually get, A-dis, and you just check down here. So 1 attacking unit's disrupted. If already disrupted, it uses a step. So actually that was a terrible roll for the Germans, and their large infantry battalion will actually get disrupted. And they'll get a disrupted token. And the disrupted tokens mean that they cannot attack. They can move and defend, but they can't do any attacking. And if they're in supply, then they'd be able to get that removed through the game. But if they ever are out of supply, you can never remove those. So if they get another disrupted, then they'll get reduced, and they're significantly weaker, very kind of traditional in that way. But that's the basics of combat. The other things that you have are through airplanes or ground-based artillery or naval bombardments. You can do what's called strikes, and you have your attack values, and you would just do independent attacks to put disruptions out. Or this is how you would go about blowing bridges or destroying ports, which would cut off supply and prevent landings, doing things like that. So you can do those, and then you would do your land attacks. The sub-warfare is conducted kind of out in the strategic map. And what's interesting is the Brits have 1 submarine, and the Germans have 1 U-boat unit. And the Brits, at the start of the game, put their sub-unit out, and it will never move. And then the Germans will put their U-boat unit out, and Grant put his in the North Atlantic as well. And those will never move. They always stay there. But anytime you have naval movement, so, for example, you've got HMS Hood. If he ever leaves port in Scapa Flow, he has to go into the North Atlantic. And then there's an option for the Germans to try and spot him. And the spotting is kind of dictated by the scenario. Ours was if you do a 5 or 6, you spot them, boop, which means he can immediately attack. And the submarines stay unspotted until they attack. So he'll attack, So he flips over. He rolls. He's looking for a 3 or less, so he misses, and then I get to hit back. And I roll. I want a 3 or less as well. I miss, so that was kind of a wash. And that's a lot of how our combat went, because some of the boats they're 1s or 2s, not very powerful. But the U-boats, if he can attack and destroy the boat, I don't get to attack back. But if you're doing surface-to-surface combat, so you got the Scharnhorst and the Hood, if they were attacking each other, if they both spot each other, the combat's simultaneous. So you both roll a die, you both attack each other. If you both destroy each other, they both get destroyed. It's simultaneous in that way. But really, that's the combat. I mean, it's not overly complex. The game is very, very easy to learn in that sense. Again, you can see the map. There is a lot of kind of dark gray olives and greens. So some of the terrains are not textured well. So that can be very difficult to see, what's the predominant color, what's the predominant terrain, kind of what exactly is happening. So that's something that I would just let you know about. You can probably see it from this. It looks like there's some kind of gray-green here, and everything else is brown. And the white bits are the snow-capped mountains. But there are subterranes in here. This is some lava that's very difficult to see. And then there's rugged versus clear. So with the stacks and things, you just got to make sure that you actually pay attention, because you might be in a different terrain than you think. So just pay attention to that a lot. But outside of that, sequence of play was excellent, extremely helpful. Great board. I loved the layout of the board. It was very helpful. You've got your 2-sided player aid sheet, was very helpful. And the game itself played in a very swift manner. Like some games tout, this is a quick war game. This is one of the first ones where I felt, wow, that was really quick. We played that very quickly. This game genuinely has low counter density. Reminded me of the same pace and feel as the Napoleonic 20 series, where you play the game and it's done. You're not bogged down moving stacks, counting things. You don't get into a lot of heavy grogging. The game you move your pieces around, do some combat, you do moves, and you've got 10 turns and then it's done. So that was kind of a look at Operation Icarus from this board. We'll wrap up with some final thoughts.
So I hope you enjoyed looking at the game and seeing what it looked like. I think, Alexander, what are your final thoughts of the game? And then I'll give my final comments.
Whilst the game wasn't perfect, there was a lot of stuff with the rule book itself was kind of a bad.
It was about 18 pages, and there were parts that were very vague, I thought.
Yeah.
Very vague and very unclear.
Or located in a really weird, unintuitive place.
Right.
I was trying to find certain things was kind of tough.
So we were looking in Naval area trying to figure, and then there was a rule about something kind of off in another area.
This tiny rule, which was important for us, was like buried.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit there. That wasn't necessarily my favorite thing in the whole world. And sometimes the map was a little all the same color. And we showed you that just now.
Well, and it's Iceland, right? There's lichen.
Yeah.
There's rock.
There's lava.
A little more lichen and some lava.
Slightly
There's not a lot
rock.
of, jungles or even forested areas. So it was a very basic map.
A lot of gray, different shades of gray, which could be very difficult for some people.
And tans, yeah.
But outside of that,
I missed mountains several times. Like I would look and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a mountain. I can't go there. So,
but outside of that, this is one of the few polybag games that is a polybag game.
Yeah.
Like it's you get a good sized map out of it. It's big, but really, I've got 15, 20 counters. That's what you.
Yeah, I think there were like 80 total, and that included
Everything's-
administrative counters.
And half of them you don't play with
Right.
in either of the scenarios because
Yeah.
there's 3 in there.
I think there are 3 scenarios in the game.
And so it's very, very playable. And I appreciate that when a game says it's going to be set it up, play it, it's quick, it comes in a plastic bag, and it does that.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, oh, it comes in a plastic bag. And it's
then-
like, this is a 4-hour game
Yeah,
with
right.
a ton of stuff in it.
Yeah.
This one,
Winter Thunder was like that.
Yeah.
Great game,
So
but it was like a
many
4-hour game, and there was a lot to
Yeah,
it.
like that was just like a big game in a small
Yeah,
bag.
yeah.
This is a
small game in a small bag.
And that's great. I really enjoyed that. A refreshing theme. Something
Yeah.
very different.
That's one thing I would say. I really enjoyed the theme of the what-if invasion of Iceland. Never really played a role in World War II. In fact, the British kind of said, hey, we're coming in, and they kind of occupied kind of for the good of Iceland and for the good of
for the good of the Royal Navy.
yeah,
That's what
for
it
the
was.
Royal Navy and the supply route from America, bringing
Yeah, it was all of it.
materials over. That was a very interesting something we have not necessarily played
Games
often
before, yeah.
Also, I really liked I thought the units and the counters were well done. They're very clear.
Yeah.
They aren't going to blow your socks off, but I think they're well done. They're well struck. They came out of those sprues very easily. I did clip mine, you'll notice in the video, but I don't know that they needed to be clipped. So this is a great value game. I think it's $24.
Oh yeah.
And it has 3 scenarios in it, so you can really play it 7 or 8 times and never really experience the same thing.
And it would make a good solitaire game. There's
It would.
no hidden
Not hidden
information
information.
like that.
So you can
Everything's
putter
out there.
around with it and learn it, and then go dominate one of your war game friends.
Yeah, just
So
pretend you've never played it before, and then
right,
just,
I have no idea what this is. Oh, boom! But really liked a lot of the elements. I think you should give this one a try, and we'll do a further written review of the game, as well as maybe some action points helping you understand some of the specific rules covering naval, combat, movement, and maybe that transit box. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what we do, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to our channel, and obviously check out our website at theplayersaid.com. Thank you very much.